In the year 2010, the New York Times columnist David Brooks wrote an op-ed that made my blood boil. Maybe you've had a similar experience with David Brooks, or maybe another New York Times columnist. Following the earthquake in Haiti that year, he wrote that Haiti has, quote, a progress-resistant culture. He wrote specifically that the religion of Vodou, which is sometimes pronounced voodoo by outsiders, is to blame. He wrote, "There is the influence of the voodoo religion, which spreads the message that life is capricious and planning futile." Now, as some of you know, I've spent time in Haiti, and I care deeply about the country and my friends there. Vodou is, in fact, a rich and complicated tradition that I don't think Brooks knows very much about. His description of Vodou is simplistic and also loaded, given that he's describing a religion of the first Black Republic. Brooks's larger point in his 2010 op-ed also stuck with me. Essentially, he argued for a kind of cultural imperialism. In describing how to promote change here and abroad, he wrote, "The programs that really work involve intrusive paternalism." I thought of Brooks's op-ed again this week as I studied this week's Parsha, Vayigash. Towards the end of the Parsha, we read about how Joseph acted as the second in command behind Pharaoh in Egypt during a famine. The medieval French commentator Rabbi has an interesting comment on this. He argues that one of Joseph's solutions to the problem of the famine was to create empathy among the people of Egypt for the Israelites. By moving the Egyptians from city to city, Rashi argues, the Egyptians realized that, like the Israelites, they were ivri, or passers-by, with no claims to the land. Rashi's interpretation reminded me of the importance of empathy and listening to folks from other social groups we may not understand. When navigating how to create a more just world for everyone, this seems like a good North Star. It is important to listen to folks, to have empathy, to try to understand where they're coming from. Everyone deserves basic respect and compassion. Everyone, even David Brooks. Funnily enough, I found myself the past couple weeks coming to David Brooks' defense. A few weeks ago, Brooks wrote what I thought was a marvelous essay in the New York Times about his journey to faith, which I will add we will be discussing in the podcast club next Wednesday. Come and join us. When I looked online at the reaction to Brooks' piece, I found that people were pillorying Brooks. A rabbi who is a friend of mine posted Brooks' article, and many liberal clergy commented with criticism. Some of it was fair, but some of it was downright mean. I entered the Facebook fray and joined the conversation defending Brooks. The lesson from this week's Parsha teaches us that Brooks deserves better than this. Everyone, including folks who some might find grating, deserve respect and compassion. Of course, it behooves us to apply this North Star to more urgent situations than whether David Brooks is being treated fairly on the internet. I read earlier this month in the New York Times about some absolutely horrible news out of Haiti. More than 180 people were massacred in Port-au-Prince by a gang leader. News reports and the gang said that the gang leader targeted elder practitioners of Vodou because he believed they were targeting his children with sorcery. I know that all of our hearts break when we read news like this, even if the news is happening in a faraway country that most of us have never visited. It's horrible to know that these things are happening, and we can often feel powerless to try to help folks far away. I spent a lot of time reading about Haiti, and I know that there are no easy solutions to the current crisis in Haiti. If anything, the role of folks like us, a world away, is to perhaps donate money and also to follow the lead of people on the ground there who know the situation better than we do. And I find it frustrating that it's so much easier to defend David Brooks's humanity than it is to defend the humanity of these victims of the atrocity in Haiti. By all appearances, David Brooks is doing quite well from himself, especially compared to these folks who suffered harm in Cité Soleil, one of the poorest neighborhoods in one of the poorest countries in the world. What's so frustrating is that while it's almost absurd to talk about David Brooks's humanity and the humanity of these Haitian elders in the same sentence, I find myself doing more to defend David Brooks than these Haitians. And yet, it seems important to continue to apply this North Star of everyone deserving basic respect and humanity. This is important morally, and I also think it's important strategically. One of the things I admire most about an activist I've studied, Adrienne Maree Brown, is her ability to create a welcoming and humanizing form of activism. When we become insular and haughty, yes, when we don't give the David Brookses of the world a fair shake, we risk undermining the causes we seek to serve. At the end of the day, we are all ivri, to borrow from Joseph and Rashi in this week's Parsha. This is the root that gives us the word Hebrews. We are all passing through. Our stations in life are temporary. As we pass through, it is upon us to treat others with compassion. It can be futile and frustrating defending the David Brookses of our society and perhaps the David Brookses in our own personal life. I know many of us would much rather focus on people who more urgently need help. And yet, it seems we can only create a more just world by inviting more people to the table of care and compassion. Together, may we each do our part to bring about a better world for all of us, Ivri. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will.